Stone Soul. Chapter 1. 11th Hour. Narration by Jack Robinson. Ish was old, but never wiser. Ish had a kindly warmth, but had never experienced that of another. Ish was tired, but he could never seem to sleep. Time was lost to the clockmaker, each tick indistinguishable from the following tock. If enough time was spent on an art, it is no longer an art, but a part of oneself. Giving a lifetime to the inner workings of machines made Ish's very mind run like clockwork. A short man, wrinkled and far from stout. He resembled a malnourished turkey in sight and stature, even owning a similar saggy neck. Wearing a navy cardigan and grey slacks, his attire contradicted the grueling expression he wore. It was a look forged by cold weather rather than the turmoil of work. Loving life on all fronts, save for the horrid weather, made Ish's sour expression a guilt-ridden one. He smiled where he could and apologized when he could not. The most notable thing about Ish was a bushy moustache that stuck out from his grey, balding head. This moustache was free to grow, and in return warmed his upper lip in the coldness. Above the thick lip warmer sat a pair of spectacles, also thick, but gold at the rims. These half-moon glasses made the world a clearer place, allowing him to work with ease. Unfortunately, today was a harsh day to be working, regardless of clarity. The last day of the week was always the slowest. 3 customers in thrice as many hours. Closing time came as he locked the doors, ready to lock down his own mind for the night. The store was older than he, and it showed. Every corner housed a family of bugs. Each thick window pane was chipped and misty. And more troubling was the wooden beams holding it all together. Each one was plumb rotten, ready to cave under the abandoned housing overhead. Unlike most shopkeepers, Ish preferred the rough eastern streets of Aladult to the market district's panache. As a result, his store had endured several construction projects, finding itself buried beneath a second floor of residence. Being cramped on either side, he and his business had no room to grow any more. Maybe this was good for a man of such age. Growth was best left to those with a full set of teeth, the better half of them at least. Business wasn't booming, and this meant Ish's little haven was jam-packed with all manner of clocks, parts, odds, ends, and all else betwixt. A few dozen shelves across the walls held tons of metal pieces, all forged from brass and quartz, each playing a vital role in a clock's grand scheme. In the face of a bad day, an old adage came to mind. Fiat, Castan for let it be done, was an old term coined by judges, clerics, and businessmen the world over. Ish was no different, and he warded off disgruntlement with this single word. Life was so simple, with the right motivation. Waving the weary shop good night, he extinguished the candles one by one. The heat was small, unable to warm his flesh. Similarly, his inner flame was dim, and failed to brighten up the dark spring night. The month of rainfall was upon Magnus, and marked the end of the moon's dominance over her brother, the mighty sun. If the tales were to be believed, the sun god Solaris and his sister Luna battled constantly for control of the sky. Neither held dominance for more than a few months. The gods' tales never sparked much in Ish's heart. Few things did. Honestly, he found them long-winded and childish. Such things weren't meant for the ears of men, only those of boys. Moving into the back room of the store, Ish had officially entered his home. Small as a closet, with an outhouse attached. His home was sweet, if a little claustrophobic. Stuffed in the corner was his bed, which acted as a seat, dining area, and workbench. Stacks of tools and books filled in what little space remained around the room, and the odour of elderly musk filled the air. Dragging an oversized teapot onto a stove, rusted with decades of use, Ish sat down and indulged in his favourite pastime. As a mechanist of sorts, he found pleasure in building more than just clocks. Whenever time permitted, he would build away in his closet-sized home, hoping to replicate life itself. Archmech was the name of the resident machina of Magnus. They were built by man to serve man, much like angels serve the gods. Most were made by the dozen by orcs in the far west, meant to fill the ranks of armies or labour away in factories. Their lives were designed without meaning. But Ish found injustice in slavery, whether it be man or machine in chains. Where others sought to build archmechs for work, he made them for play. His last project, a machina named Cecilia, was finished a year back and left to explore the Castellans. She was the closest thing he had to a daughter. He'd never missed anything more. All he wanted was a carrier pigeon or courier to drop him a letter. He wanted his child to be okay. Since Cecilia's departure, he'd managed to build a second child, or at least half of one, with its legs and matrix missing. The boy still needed some months more care, but it would be worth the wait. The creation of life was once a sacred thing belonging to the gods alone, but with the turn of the 6th era, godhood wasn't so exclusive anymore. Ish never took much pride in his work, preferring to be a father, not the father. Yet all through the night a smile was stuck to his face. Life was sacred, and his to mould. Hours of tinkering passed, several cups of tea were drunk, and as the city's grand clock tower struck 11, Ish hit the hay. Of course, being the proprietor of a clock shop, his ears first endured the choir of 100 different chimes, all 11 rung together, exactly calibrated. He liked his job, loved his life, and wanted it to never change. But fate had other ideas. The bounds of sleep would have to wait. A heavy hand knocked 4 times on his door. It rattled, sounding as if a club was beating upon it. At this hour, only fiends walked the streets. The Order never patrolled the east side anymore. If Valadote's youth were looking for a quick source of bronze rough coins, Ish wasn't going to indulge their greed. From under the crooked bed he drew a flintlock pistol. Old and faithful, it had saved him from thieves more than once. Just last month back, a flashy man and his brooding sister had tried their luck, only to meet the barrel of his rustic firearm. He slowly moved back into the store, towards the door. Each step was quicker than the last as he loaded a lead pellet into the lone chamber of the pistol. In a brave voice, barely showing his trembling tone, he bellowed to the knocker. "If you're one of Don's boys, jog on. I've no patience for you. I'm armed, and I know my rights," he warned. No answer came from behind the door, panicked or otherwise. So, with a fast pull, Ish yanked open the oak barrier and pointed Old Faithful at the guest. Standing on his dilapidated porch was an overwhelming figure that stood at almost twice his height, and so broad you could confuse him for one of the city's walls. Covered from head to toe in a brown cloak, the identity of this man was an anxious mystery. Calling this thing a man was a guess at best. Its breaths were monotone and false, and its shape was too big for any human on Magnus. Ish even felt a glowing heat from standing in its presence. Sticking out from the shadowed cloak were 2 unmoving eyes, having a yellow hue and shaped like diamonds. These eyes weren't unnerving, which was the scary part. This thing was inherently friendly.
"I suggest You lower that arm. I mean you no harm,
spoke the creature in a bland voice. And I suggest you walk away, chap. I don't want what you're selling.
I'm not selling anything. I only carry news. News about Sicily.
This last sentence was given with a pinch of regret, and instantly sparked worry in Ish's belly.
May I come in?
Pled the figure. The being had him at Sicily. As if fate itself had willed it, there stood the answer to the last of Ish's problems. Without retracting his weapon, the elder stood aside with a slight nod of acceptance. Yes, you may. Just keep your distance, stranger, Ish warned. Clearing space out back was an impossibility, so the two took seats by the store's counter, Ish in his usual place, while the figure took the seat of a customer. Neglecting to remove his hood, the towering oddity further refused to reveal itself.
Best I keep this on. My face isn't one you'll want to remember. You can call me Zarpadon, if you please. It may make things easier.
Easier? What do you mean, Zarpadon? Taking a moment to breathe, Ish readied for the worst. But a clear idea of what was to come lingered on his mind, an undesired but likely scenario.
Mr. Peacock.
Zarpadon paused and was unsure whether to resume. Eventually, after a moment, the figure could stomach the ticking clocks no longer and continued.
I'm afraid Sicily is no longer with us.
He sighed. Ish never had real children, but truly believed this is what it was like to lose one. A harrowing emptiness overcame him. No words came to mind or left his mouth. Only a burning ache flooded in. Heartache, headache, his very soul ached from the news. Tears lingered on his eyelids and lumps appeared in his throat. His little girl was gone. He whispered.
No, please, do not speak. Save the words for later, sir. Just remain calm,
reasoned Zarpadon. Tell me what happened, Ish replied, with anger, an emotion he'd believed was lost to him. Tell me what happened to my Cecilia. Zarpadon was still, and only lowered his head like a shamed pup. The cloaked figure admitted something no sane being ever would.
It was me. I caused her in.
What? Ish said in a cold rage.
It was my hand that killed Cecilia.
Never in Ish's long life had the idea of murder ever surfaced. Even now, all he wanted was Zarpadon's suffering, not his life. Yet, a force beyond him seemed to take control. With a swift motion, up came his pistol, as it blasted lead into the self-admitted murderer. The force was strong on both ends, snapping Ish's own elbow out of place, while launching Zarpadon back into a row of grandfather clocks. The noise of the bullet rung in his ears, followed by the cries of a dozen clocks smashing. In one moment, Ish went from humble Olden to hapless killer. At least, that's what he thought. Soon to be proven wrong, the cloaked mystery arose from the gunshot, seemingly unharmed. I don't understand. Ish gawked. The cloaked thing stood upright to reveal his wounds. The bullets had hit, but neither flesh nor bone, rather a thick wall of pink crystal. No blood poured, and only a few glowing glass fragments fell to the floor. Each chimed like a bell as they landed.
There is plenty you don't understand,
added Zarpadon, huffing his words.
I was told you'd be angry, not bloodthirsty. Still, I did deserve that. Truth be told, I spent so long shut away that I forgot what pain feels like.
You're an angel? Crystal bodies belonged to the angels of Prime. If Zarpedon bled pink, not red, then an angelic crystalline lingered beneath that cloak.
Of a sort, I haven't gone by that descriptor for a long time.
Zarpedon admitted. So you are an angel. You're kind of supposed to protect life, not end it. Why did you kill my girl? Still limply waving his emptied pistol about, Ish felt anger building again. One shot wasn't enough to settle his grief. Would any amount suffice?
Please, lower that thing. Allow me to explain. I was being metaphorical, mostly.
After retaking his solemn stance, the angel explained the best he could.
My actions got her killed. My failures. Cecilia sacrificed herself to save me. She took her own life, but only to save mine.
This angel had a poor way with words. If what he said had rang true, then she was still gone, but it wasn't in vain. Helping Zarpedon back to his chair, they continued to talk of her passing. Why did she give herself up? Scylla had a happy life. What could warrant such a thing? Ish asked in confusion.
Her, myself, and my company of paladins ventured into a dark place. This place was corrupted to the core, and would have been all our ends if not for Cecilia.
Through his bland voice, you could almost make out the sense of pride in Zarpedon's words.
She ended her life a hero.
Paladins? You're part of the Order, snapped Ish. Explains a lot. Ish never trusted the boys in black. The religious movement practically built this city, but that was a long time ago. Now the sect had never been weaker. With a dying fool as its leader, and a council of ignorant youths in place to contradict him, the Order brought very little actual order to the realm.
Not anymore.
Assured Zarpedon.
You see, my boss is breaking away from the paladins. He holds goals far grander.
He's a smart man. But what's grander than our mighty Order?
The very world is at stake. If we don't act, Magnus and Prime will die.
Okay, that's pretty big. Ish was unsure if Zarpedon was preaching heresy, or was the only true devotee left in Valadolt. But, seeing as Cecilia had supposedly trusted the angel, so would he, for a time.
Oh, the biggest. Truth is, time is short, and I need your help.
And what could a divine being want from me? Waving coyly, Ish groaned at his recently popped elbow. The pain was chronic numbness, the worst kind of pain, ever present and pervasive.
Here, allow me.
Zarpedon held great speed for a being so broad, with a flash of pink in his hand. The angel snapped the elbow back into place with a single movement, one devoid of pain.
As I said, time is short. I need you to make me something. It is in your field of expertise, I'm sure of it. I need a special clock.
A special clock was a vague request. Vague and pointless to boot. Zarpedon was mocking him, surely. I need more than that. What makes this so special? Is it of the cuckoo variety, a bull-bearing model?
I'm afraid not. It doesn't tell time at all. Rather, it bends it.
Zarpedon was definitely mocking him. Time was untouchable even by the great Lord Gideon or any of the lesser gods up on Prime. Like with the pistol, a raging void of loss came over Ish, one less deserved, but present all the same. You'd come to me, break my very heart and soul, then ask something so queer? Please, leave. Let me grieve for my girl, Ish snapped.
I am not being queer. I need you, Ish. I beg.
Granting a second chance, Ish harshly said, Then be honest. What is it you really need?
I need a custom clock. One built to my leader's specifications. It can truly bend time. This is all we have got to go on here. Please grant me a single ounce of trust.
Again, breaking a man down, only to ask for an object an old mechanist could never muster. Wasn't polite. It wasn't even funny. It was time for the angel to leave. The day was drawing to a close, and the old man was tired. Tired of the day and of life. Then I suggest you go uptown and talk with the Engineers Guild. I've got to make arrangements for Cecilla's burial. Ish pointed Zarpedon to the door and hushed any further debate. Good day, sir. Without a fuss, the angel nodded and left him to his sadness. Cecilla had moved on, and they both needed to as well. To be continued. Thank you, and have a good day.